It's your boy King, bro. I'm this bitch in Icebox, my boy. We know this is my second home playing written, so I got my boy 30 in this bitch and he got ice on.
This is the story of Dayvon Daquan Bennett. He was 26 years old. Before the headlines, before the investigations, and before fans around the world woke up to shocking news out of Atlanta, King Von was rapidly becoming one of the most talked about artists in hip-hop. His rise felt fast, but to the people who followed his journey from not just his delivery, it was his storytelling. Fans felt like they weren't just hearing songs. They felt like they were hearing scenes from real life. His music painted vivid pictures, filled with details and emotion, which helped separate him from countless other rising artists online. And audiences responded immediately. Signed to Lil Durk's Only the Family label, King Von's visibility grew rapidly. Songs like Crazy Story helped turn him from a local name into a nationally recognized artist, and millions of listeners became invested in both his music and his personal journey. To supporters, he represented authenticity, someone who spoke openly about where he came from rather than trying to hide it. By 2020, his momentum was impossible to ignore. Streaming numbers climbed higher. Music videos pulled millions of views. Collaborations expanded his audience even further. And beyond the music itself, fans were drawn to his personality. Confident, charismatic, and often funny in interviews and live streams. For many young listeners, King Von felt real in a way that few artists did. But fame also brought pressure. As his career accelerated, public attention around his personal life, rivalries, and past became more intense too. Online discussions surrounding rap culture and conflict often followed him wherever he went. Still, despite the controversy that sometimes surrounded his image, many people close to the music industry believed his future remained incredibly bright. At just 26 years old, he was reaching a level many artists spend entire careers trying to achieve. And perhaps that's what made the news so difficult for fans to process when it finally broke. Because only hours before, King Von had still looked like someone on the verge of an even bigger breakthrough. An artist still climbing, still creating, still building a legacy. Then suddenly, one night outside a nightclub in Atlanta changed everything forever. Welcome to LAT True Crime Stories. I am your host. Today's case is one that takes a turn you probably won't see coming. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button, smash the like button, and leave your comment to tell us where you're watching from. Let's build this community together. Now let's get into it. In the early hours of November 6th, 2020, the focus of the story shifted from Chicago to Atlanta. More specifically, to the area outside the Monaco Hookah Lounge, a nightclub that had become crowded with people enjoying Atlanta's nightlife scene that night. At first, nothing publicly suggested the evening would become one of the most talked about moments in hip-hop that year. Cars moved through the parking lot. Music echoed outside the venue. Groups gathered, talked, and recorded videos for social media. It looked like a typical late-night scene. But environments like that can change quickly. Crowded nightlife locations often carry tension beneath the surface, especially when well-known public figures are involved. Cameras are everywhere. Emotions can escalate faster. Small confrontations can suddenly attract large crowds within seconds. And according to investigators, that's exactly what happened outside the club. One reason the incident gained immediate national attention was because of how public the location was. This was not something hidden away from witnesses. People nearby began recording almost immediately once the situation intensified, and within hours, footage and reactions were spreading across social media platforms worldwide. That instant visibility changed how millions of people experienced the story. Fans weren't hearing about events days later through news reports. They were watching confusion unfold in real time online. For many people present that night, the parking lot likely felt ordinary only moments earlier. Then suddenly, the atmosphere shifted completely. Witnesses described people running, shouting, and trying to understand what was happening around them. And because so many individuals were present outside the venue, the confusion became even more intense. For fans waking up later that morning, the internet already felt overwhelmed with information. Clips from the scene circulated across platforms within hours. Rumors spread quickly. Conflicting claims appeared online before investigators had even completed their initial statements. That rapid flood of information made the situation even more emotional for supporters, trying to understand what had happened to King Von. And perhaps one of the most haunting parts of the story is how quickly everything changed. Only hours earlier, King Von had been active, visible, and continuing the momentum of a career many believed was headed toward another level. Then suddenly, outside a nightclub parking lot in Atlanta, the trajectory of his life and career changed forever. And as investigators began sorting through witness statements, surveillance footage, triggering shock, confusion, and emotional reactions from fans around the world, for many supporters of King Von, the experience felt surreal. Only a short time earlier, he had been posting online, making music, and continuing the rise of a career that seemed to be gaining momentum every month. Then suddenly, social media timelines were flooded with breaking news, rumors, and footage connected to the incident. As information spread, confusion spread with it. Different accounts of what happened appeared online almost immediately. Fans tried piecing together videos, witness statements, and reports in real time, often before authorities had released complete information. That environment created intense public emotion around the case almost overnight, because people weren't simply hearing about a tragedy after the fact. They were watching the aftermath unfold live across the internet. As investigators began examining the incident, the case quickly became larger than a single confrontation outside a nightclub. Authorities reviewed surveillance footage, witness accounts, and videos circulating online in an effort to reconstruct the timeline of what happened. And because off-duty police officers were reportedly present nearby during the incident, public attention around the investigation became even more intense. Online discussions exploded across social media platforms. Fans debated conflicting narratives. News broke. The reaction across social media and the music industry was immediate. Fans struggled to process what had happened to King Von because only days earlier, he had still seemed unstoppable. His music was growing rapidly. His audience was expanding worldwide, and many believed he was entering the biggest phase of his career. Then suddenly, everything stopped. Tributes poured in from artists, producers, friends, and supporters around the world. Lil Durk and others connected to King Von publicly mourned him, while fans revisited interviews, songs, live stream clips, and old videos in an attempt to hold onto the artist they had connected with through music. For many listeners, the loss felt personal, not because they knew him directly, but because his storytelling style made people feel emotionally connected to his journey. One of the hardest parts for fans was thinking about unrealized potential. At only 26 years old, King Von had already achieved what many artists spend years chasing. But supporters believed there was still much more ahead of him. More albums, more growth, more opportunities to evolve beyond the image many people associated with him early in his career. That's why conversations after his death often centered around interruption. Not just the loss of a person, but the loss of what his future might have become. And beyond the music industry, the incident also reignited larger conversations about conflict, environment, and how quickly public situations can escalate when emotions, fame, and pressure collide. Because by the time the sun came up that morning in Atlanta, countless lives had changed permanently. For many people, the story of King Von became larger than a single incident outside a nightclub. It became part of a wider conversation surrounding modern hip-hop culture, public conflict, internet attention, and the pressures that can follow artists long after fame arrives. Because success does not automatically erase the environments or attentions people come from. And in many cases, visibility can intensify those pressures instead. King Von's rise happened during an era where artists lived under constant public observation. Every confrontation could spread online within minutes. Every moment could instantly become global discussion. That reality changes how situations unfold and how quickly they spiral. For fans reflecting on his story, one thought continues to surface repeatedly. What could his life and career have looked like years later if that night had ended differently? But it's also part of why his story continues resonating forever.